The year was 1973, a time when the echoes of Watergate still reverberated through Washington, shaking the foundations of trust between the American public and its government. Amidst this tumult, a chilling act of deliberate destruction unfolded within the hallowed, secretive halls of the Central Intelligence Agency. Director Richard Helms, a man whose career was built on discretion and classified operations, issued an unequivocal order. Thousands of documents, meticulously detailing years of clandestine activities, were to be systematically incinerated. This was no ordinary house cleaning. It was a desperate attempt to erase a dark chapter, to bury secrets that, if ever revealed, would undoubtedly ignite public outrage and expose the agency to unprecedented scrutiny. The flames consumed paper, but they could not entirely extinguish the truth. 2 years later, the ashes of those destroyed records still held faint, disturbing whispers. A Senate investigation, spurred by growing concerns over intelligence abuses, began to painstakingly piece together fragments of what had once been a vast, classified program. What they unearthed, though incomplete, hinted at an objective so audacious, so ethically bankrupt, that it seemed to belong more to the realm of science fiction than to the operations of a democratic government. The revelations were piecemeal, like shards of a shattered mirror, but each piece reflected a disturbing image of unchecked power. The program, finally named and unveiled to a stunned nation, was codenamed MKUltra. Its stated aim was nothing less than the control of the human mind. This was not about espionage in the traditional sense, nor was it about covert military operations on foreign soil. MKUltra was a domestic frontier, an exploration into the very essence of human consciousness, seeking to manipulate, influence, and even break the will of individuals. It represented a truly dark chapter in American intelligence, a period where the pursuit of perceived national security eclipsed all moral and ethical boundaries, turning citizens into unwitting subjects in a grand, terrifying experiment. To truly comprehend the genesis and horrifying scope of MKUltra, one must first transport themselves back to the era of its birth, the Cold War. This was a period defined by an omnipresent paranoia, a suffocating fear that seeped into every aspect of American life. The ideological battle between the United States and the Soviet Union was not merely a geopolitical struggle, it was a psychological war, fought with propaganda, disinformation, and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. Both superpowers sought any advantage, any edge, in this high-stakes game. It was within this crucible of fear and suspicion that the seeds of MKUltra were sown, nurtured by the desperate need to understand and counter perceived enemy threats, and ultimately, to master the mind itself. The stakes felt impossibly high, leading to decisions that in retrospect appear not only morally reprehensible, but fundamentally misguided. The chilling echoes of those decisions continue to resonate, long after the Cold War faded into history. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. In the early 1950s, the United States found itself grappling with an insidious, unseen enemy. The psychological impact of the Cold War began to manifest in unsettling ways, reaching a fever pitch with the peculiar confessions emerging from American prisoners of war returning from Korea. These soldiers, once stalwart and defiant, now spoke in unnervingly similar phrases, expressing remorse for alleged war crimes and praising communist ideology. Their testimonies, delivered with a detached, almost robotic cadence, ignited a national panic. Washington, D.C., a city already tense with the constant threat of nuclear war, became consumed by fears of brainwashing. The term, coined to describe these baffling psychological shifts, painted a terrifying picture. Foreign adversaries, it seemed, possessed the power to dismantle and rebuild the human mind, turning patriots into puppets. This pervasive anxiety permeated every level of government and society. The idea that an individual's thoughts, beliefs, and even their very identity could be systematically altered by external forces was deeply unsettling. It challenged the core tenets of American individualism and freedom, suggesting a vulnerability far more profound than any conventional weapon. The CIA, at the forefront of national security concerns, was particularly seized by this phenomenon. They questioned, with a growing sense of urgency, whether foreign powers had indeed mastered the dark arts of mind control, and if so, how such a terrifying capability could be countered. The implications were staggering. If the enemy could manipulate the minds of American citizens, then no secret was safe, no loyalty guaranteed. The critical question that soon arose within the intelligence community was not merely how to defend against this perceived psychological warfare, but whether the United States could, and indeed should, master mind control itself before its adversaries perfected the technique. The logic, twisted by Cold War paranoia, was chillingly simple. If the enemy was developing such a weapon, America needed its own, or risk falling irrecoverably behind. This preemptive strike mentality, born of fear and a desperate desire for strategic advantage, began to warp ethical considerations. The thought of controlling human behavior, once confined to dystopian fiction, now became a pressing, albeit morally ambiguous objective for the nation's top intelligence agency. This profound fear, this gnawing anxiety over the vulnerability of the human mind, laid the insidious groundwork for a program that would ultimately push ethical boundaries to their absolute breaking point. The Cold War was not just a conflict of bombs and missiles. It was a battle for hearts and minds, and in this struggle, the lines between defense and offense, between protection and manipulation, began to blur beyond recognition. The desperate pursuit of an answer, of a countermeasure to the perceived threat of brainwashing, led the United States down a dangerous path, one paved with secrecy, deception, and a shocking disregard for human dignity. The stage was set for the birth of MKUltra, a clandestine venture that would forever scar the legacy of American intelligence, all in the name of national security. The chilling echoes of those decisions continue to resonate, long after the Cold War faded into history. The stage was set for the birth of MKUltra, a clandestine venture that would forever scar the legacy of American intelligence, all in the name of national security. The chilling echoes of those decisions continue to resonate, long after the Cold War faded into history. It was against this backdrop of escalating fear and strategic urgency that, in 1953, the Central Intelligence Agency officially launched Project MKUltra. The directive came directly from the top, authorized by then CIA Director Allen Dulles, a man known for his aggressive and often unconventional approach to intelligence gathering. Dulles, convinced of the existential threat posed by communist mind control techniques, greenlit a program that would delve into the darkest corners of human psychology, seeking to unlock the secrets of influence and manipulation. He entrusted its leadership to a figure whose name would become synonymous with the project's most disturbing experiments, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. A chemist by training, Gottlieb possessed a zeal for scientific exploration that, when coupled with the CIA's mandate for secrecy and results, proved a dangerous combination. He was tasked with spearheading the agency's efforts to develop practical methods for mind control, a mission he pursued with relentless, almost fanatical dedication. MKUltra was not a fleeting endeavor. It operated for over a decade, a shadowy presence within the CIA's vast and complex network. Declassified records, though incomplete, paint a picture of a sprawling operation encompassing at least 149 distinct sub-projects. These individual initiatives, often compartmentalized and shrouded in multiple layers of secrecy, explored a dizzying array of techniques and substances. The sheer number of these sub-projects underscores the breadth and intensity of the CIA's obsession with mind control, reflecting a desperate, no-holds-barred approach to the perceived psychological arms race. Each sub-project represented another facet of the larger, sinister goal: to understand, control, and ultimately exploit the human mind. The objectives of MKUltra were chillingly comprehensive. At its core, the program aimed to develop a range of tools for psychological warfare and covert operations. This included the development of so-called truth serums, chemicals believed to compel individuals to reveal classified information against their will. Experimentation also focused on testing various drugs for their potential use in interrogation scenarios, often with little regard for the subject's well-being or long-term health. Beyond chemical interventions, MKUltra explored the efficacy of hypnosis as a means of influencing behavior and memory. Researchers delved into the intricacies of psychological manipulation, seeking to identify and exploit vulnerabilities in the human psyche. The project sought to create amnesia, induce confusion, and even program individuals to carry out specific commands, all in the pursuit of an ultimate form of control. Among the myriad substances investigated, one drug emerged as a central focus: lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD. In the early 1950s, LSD was a relatively new compound, then legal and poorly understood by the scientific community, let alone the general public. Its profound hallucinogenic effects, its ability to radically alter perception and thought processes, fascinated Gottlieb and his team. The CIA saw LSD not merely as a recreational drug, but as a potent tool, a potential key to unlocking the secrets of mind alteration. They believed it could be used to destabilize enemy agents, to extract information, or even to create unwitting assassins. The drug's unpredictable and overwhelming effects, far from being a deterrent, were seen as a perverse advantage, offering a pathway to shattering an individual's will and rebuilding it according to the agency's design. The stage was thus set for a series of experiments that would push the boundaries of medical ethics and human decency to their absolute breaking point, all under the guise of national security. The theoretical explorations and sinister objectives of MKUltra soon translated into horrifying reality, as documented facts confirm that LSD was administered to a wide array of individuals, often without their knowledge or consent. Military personnel, prisoners, patients in various institutions, and even unsuspecting private citizens became unwitting subjects in the CIA's desperate quest for mind control. These were not isolated incidents but a systemic pattern of experimentation, driven by Sidney Gottlieb's relentless pursuit of results and sanctioned by the highest levels of the intelligence agency. The ethical abyss into which MKUltra plunged was deep and chilling, demonstrating a profound disregard for human autonomy and dignity. One of the most infamous and disturbing sub-projects within MKUltra was Operation Midnight Climax. This particular endeavor involved the establishment of CIA-funded safe houses in cities like San Francisco and New York, nondescript apartments designed to facilitate covert experimentation. Here, sex workers were employed, often unknowingly, to lure unsuspecting men back to these safe houses. Once inside, these individuals were covertly dosed with LSD and other psychoactive drugs. The true horror of Operation Midnight Climax lay not just in the forced drugging, but in the clandestine observation that followed. CIA agents, including Gottlieb himself, would watch the drug-induced behavior of their subjects through one-way mirrors, meticulously documenting their reactions and vulnerabilities. The rationale behind such depraved methods was ostensibly to study the drug's effects in operational scenarios, to understand how LSD could be used to compromise individuals, extract information, or simply observe its impact on human behavior in uncontrolled real-world settings. The official justification for these egregious acts, however flimsy, centered on national security. The CIA maintained that such extreme measures were necessary to protect the United States from its Cold War adversaries, who were presumed to be conducting similar, equally unethical research. This mindset allowed for a perverse logic to take hold, where the ends were believed to justify any means no matter how morally repugnant. Consequently, ethical violations were not merely incidental. They were inherent to the program's design. Oversight, if it existed at all, was minimal and easily circumvented. The clandestine nature of MKUltra, coupled with its top-secret classification, ensured that there was virtually no external scrutiny, allowing the program to operate in a moral vacuum where accountability was non-existent. The institutional safeguards that should have protected citizens from such abuses were deliberately dismantled or ignored. The true number of unwitting participants in MKUltra's myriad experiments, and the full extent of their suffering, remain largely unknown. This tragic lack of clarity is a direct consequence of the deliberate destruction of thousands of CIA documents in 1973, ordered by Director Richard Helms. These destroyed records represent not just missing files, but lost histories, erased identities, and unacknowledged traumas. The victims of MKUltra were not merely statistics. They were individuals whose lives were irrevocably altered, whose minds were tampered with, and whose trust in their own government was shattered. Many likely suffered long-term psychological damage, some perhaps even death, without ever knowing the true cause of their torment. Their stories, buried under layers of secrecy and bureaucratic destruction, stand as a haunting testament to the unchecked power of a clandestine program that operated with a chilling disregard for human rights. The echoes of these unseen victims resonate as a stark reminder of the dark chapters in American intelligence history. The tragic consequences of MKUltra's ethical void manifested most clearly in the unforeseen death of Frank Olson. In 1953, this brilliant CIA biological warfare scientist became an unwitting participant in one of the program's most reckless experiments. During a retreat at a secluded cabin in Maryland, Olson was covertly given a dose of LSD in his after-dinner drink by his colleague Sidney Gottlieb, the very chemist leading MKUltra. The intention, seemingly, was to observe the effects of the powerful hallucinogen on an unsuspecting subject, a chilling illustration of the program's disregard for consent and safety. Olson's reaction was immediate and severe. He experienced a profound psychological crisis, characterized by paranoia, disorientation, and a deep sense of dread. His mental state rapidly deteriorated over the next few days, plunging him into a terrifying spiral of confusion and despair. His colleagues, witnessing his alarming decline, brought him to New York City for psychiatric evaluation. However, the true nature of his condition, that he had been involuntarily drugged with LSD, was concealed from the doctors. Just days after the initial dosing in the early hours of November 28, 1953, Frank Olson fell to his death from the 13th floor window of his hotel room. The official ruling was suicide, a tragic end to a man reportedly suffering from a nervous breakdown. Yet, even at the time, whispers of foul play circulated among those close to the CIA's shadowy operations. Olson's family, devastated and perplexed, struggled to reconcile the official narrative with the man they knew. He was a devoted husband and father, seemingly stable and committed to his work. The sudden, violent nature of his death, coupled with the secrecy surrounding his final days, left an indelible mark of suspicion. Decades later, in 1975, the truth began to surface, albeit partially. As the Church Committee investigations brought MKUltra into the public eye, the CIA was forced to acknowledge certain aspects of its clandestine activities. It was then that the agency, under pressure, admitted that Frank Olson had indeed been given LSD without his knowledge or consent shortly before his death. This partial acknowledgement, while a significant breakthrough for the Olson family and the public, only deepened the mystery surrounding his demise. It raised profound questions about the circumstances of his death. Was it truly a suicide brought on by the drug, or had something more sinister transpired? Did Olson in his drug-induced state pose a security risk that the agency felt compelled to neutralize? The revelations painted a picture of an agency willing to sacrifice its own for the sake of its dark experiments, hinting at a cover-up far more extensive than initially imagined. The 1975 Rockefeller Commission, established to investigate CIA activities within the United States, further validated the family's long-held suspicions by officially confirming that Olson had been administered LSD without his consent. This constituted a rare, albeit belated, official recognition of the profound ethical breach that had led to his death. However, this acknowledgement offered little solace or complete closure. The mystery surrounding the precise events leading to his fall remained unresolved. The family, still seeking answers, pressed for further investigation. Their persistent efforts led to a second autopsy in 1996, more than 4 decades after Olson's death. This examination, conducted by a forensic pathologist, revealed compelling evidence of possible pre-fall injuries, including a bruise on his head and a possible blow to the chest, which suggested he may have been unconscious or incapacitated before he went through the window. These findings directly contradicted the official suicide narrative, fueling speculation that Olson might have been murdered. Despite these unsettling findings and the mounting evidence of manipulation and secrecy, no criminal charges were ever filed. The statute of limitations had long expired, and the shadowy nature of the CIA's operations made it impossible to gather definitive proof. Frank Olson's death remains shrouded in a dense fog of dispute and suspicion, a haunting emblem of MKUltra's unchecked power and its devastating human cost. His story serves as a stark reminder of the ethical precipice upon which the program operated, leaving a legacy of unanswered questions and a profound sense of injustice for a family forever altered by the hidden machinations of their government. The true nature of Frank Olson's final moments, whether a tragic suicide or a calculated elimination, continues to be one of the darkest unresolved mysteries of the Cold War era, a chilling testament to the lengths the CIA would go in its pursuit of mind control. The Church Committee, convened in 1975, finally brought the clandestine abuses of the intelligence community under a much-needed public spotlight. This Senate investigation, born from the post-Watergate era's demand for government accountability, became the primary mechanism for scrutinizing the CIA's most guarded secrets. While the committee primarily focused on broad intelligence overreach, it was during their meticulous, albeit incomplete, review that fragments of MKUltra's existence were first pieced together. Surviving financial records, remnants of a program designed for total secrecy, offered tantalizing clues, hinting at a vast, ethically bankrupt enterprise hidden within the agency's labyrinthine structure. These documents, though sparse, were enough to confirm the unthinkable. The United States government had sanctioned and conducted extensive human experimentation. The committee's findings were damning, a stark indictment of unchecked power and moral decay. They confirmed that MKUltra had indeed engaged in human experimentation without the informed consent of its subjects, a profound violation of fundamental human rights. The victims were often vulnerable individuals, psychiatric patients, prisoners, or even ordinary citizens caught in the program's wide net, who were subjected to mind-altering drugs, psychological manipulation, and other coercive techniques. The revelations painted a chilling picture of academic and medical institutions unknowingly or willingly co-opted as fronts for these sinister experiments, their facilities and expertise exploited to lend a veneer of legitimacy to illicit activities. Secret funding mechanisms were also uncovered, revealing how millions of taxpayer dollars had been funneled into these clandestine operations, bypassing congressional oversight and accountability. The sheer scale of the deception and the callous disregard for human welfare shocked the nation. However, the Church Committee's ability to fully uncover the truth was severely hampered by a devastating act of sabotage. Most operational files pertaining to MKUltra had been deliberately destroyed in 1973, 2 years prior to the investigation, under the direct order of then CIA Director Richard Helms. This systemic purge of records meant that the true scope and horror of MKUltra would likely never be fully known. Countless subprojects, anonymous victims, and specific details of the experiments vanished into the bureaucratic ether, leaving behind only tantalizing glimpses of a much larger, darker picture. The destruction of these files was not merely an administrative oversight. It was a deliberate act to obscure the truth, to bury the evidence of profound ethical breaches and potential criminal activities. This act of calculated erasure left an enduring void, a gaping hole in the historical record that continues to fuel speculation and mistrust. The committee's findings, while incomplete, exposed a profound breach of public trust, shattering the illusion of a benevolent and accountable intelligence apparatus. The revelations about MKUltra left a chilling void of unanswered questions, a haunting legacy of secrecy that continues to resonate decades later. Who were all the victims? What were the long-term effects of these experiments? How many lives were irrevocably damaged or lost? The precise motivations behind some of the more extreme experiments, beyond the generalized fear of Cold War adversaries, remained shrouded in mystery. The program's true extent, its deepest motivations, and the full roster of its perpetrators and victims may forever remain hidden, buried beneath layers of destroyed documents and institutional silence. MKUltra stands as a stark reminder of the dangers inherent in unchecked governmental power, and the seductive allure of scientific advancement unmoored from ethical considerations. The program's legacy continues to cast a long shadow, fueling public skepticism about government transparency and the potential for clandestine operations to transgress moral boundaries in the name of national security. The story of MKUltra is not just a historical footnote, it is a cautionary tale, a permanent scar on the fabric of American democracy, reminding us of the constant vigilance required to safeguard human rights against the pervasive darkness of state secrets. Its enduring mystery serves as a testament to the profound and lasting damage inflicted when the pursuit of knowledge descends into the abyss of unethical experimentation.